So we are joined by my friend Virginia Rich there with the Noxubee County Sheriffs Department. We thank you so much for taking some time for us. We finally got you on the platform. Unbelievable career in both fire and law enforcement. I got a room full here with me at Velma Jackson. We're recording this for all of our friends in Madison County Schools, Madison Central, Rosa Scott, Germantown High School, Ridgeland High School, the Academic Options Center, and our YouTube channel. And we're in the public safety career cluster, which you have an extensive career in. And we thank you so much for taking some time for us today from there in Noxubee County.
All right, thanks you so much for having me. I appreciate it, and looking forward to this conversation.
Now, just give us a little background because you are originally from the Starkville area, but tell us how you kind of got into this field because when you got into this, we were not seeing a lot of women get into public safety.
Absolutely, and I'm glad you mentioned that because you're absolutely right. Now, how I got into public safety, period, is when I was a kid, I wanted to be a firefighter. I wanted to be a firefighter. I mean, the little nice shiny red engine would come through the community, and when it did, and those guys would get off that truck, and they would just working, it's just really nice to see how they work together, and it was always so smooth. And then they'll just put their gear up and get in a little in the red truck and leave, and I really liked it, and really wanted to do it. So I decided I was going to be a firefighter. Now, compared to law enforcement, and we'll talk about that in a minute too. Now, when the police came, it was always chaotic, but when the fire department came, things were smooth, and I really liked that in that big shiny red truck. So when I had decided I wanted to try out for the fire department, even at that time, this was the early 90s, 1990, as a matter of fact, I didn't even realize, I mean, that there weren't any females in that field, especially in my area. Greenwood was probably the only place that had a considerable amount of females, but in my town, I was the first female firefighter for the city of Starkville. Okay. And I was there for uh, a few years, a couple of years, and that was an amazing career. The firefighting stuff, it's different. It's different. There's nothing like putting the wet stuff on the red stuff, and it gets you going. I love that. Was it difficult getting on? Absolutely. I had to go above and beyond to get a position. I mean, it was challenging, and I have a lot of stories about what that whole process was because it wasn't easy, and I was competing against counterparts. And it's always interesting, your fellow classmates, whether they were in high school with you or they're sitting with you, in your class right now. You'll be surprised sometimes in life. You may look up and they're one of your competitors for a position, a job, and that's always interesting for me. Of course, with what I was doing with firefighting, initially it was a little intimidating, somewhat, but I pushed right through it. It was hard. Like, I didn't even make it the first time, but I tried again. So never, ever, ever give up, no matter what. But I love firefighting. It I did so much in a short period of time during my career as a firefighter. And I'm not bragging. I may have done more than a lot of people have done over a course of 20 plus years in that short amount of time. But all of that boils down to a mindset too. When standards are set, I like to examine those standards in anywhere or anything that I'm doing and try to measure up.
Yeah, and
So
it's so cool because we actually we have an assignment now that has a video of J.J. Watt, the NFL player, and he's going through the firefighter training, and he was just like, "Man, I'm a professional athlete, and this is wearing me out." So, it's a great field for kids that play sports now in high school, and they say, "Hey, you get to stay in shape, you get to work on a team, you get that adrenaline rush, but at the end of the day, you get to be a community person that saves people's lives." And depending on where you are, you may have different types of things you have to do. I know here down in Madison County and Ridgeland and Madison, they have to do water rescues. So if you're a person that likes to, you want to be out on the boat and when there's a boating accident and you're the first on the scene to get to do stuff, they can find a place for you. And you mentioned how you were the first female. The reason that we need females to consider being in firefighting is because if there's an emergency situation, um, a lot, and several female firefighters have said, if I'm the only female there, the female that was in danger is going to feel most comfortable talking to me. Now, that doesn't mean the men don't do a great job because we got some great firefighters around here, but you really can be a calming presence and an advocate for females in an emergency situation because it's not just always fire. There's medical. There's, sometimes you're assisting police because there's been a violent crime. You're helping with car wrecks. There could have been, something leading with that. So you can be a huge hand to calming down a lot of situations just because you are the one that they see.
Absolutely. And it's, you're exactly right. And that's true for firefighting, law enforcement. And of course, I was an EMT as well.
Oh,
So,
cool.
and that was amazing too. I mean, generally, most firefighters are, EMTs as well as a firefighter. So,
Yeah, and the cool part about firefighting is too, when you get in there every day, you never know what's going to happen. So if you're
uh,
somebody that wants the thrill of the chase and you're an adrenaline junkie and you
yes,
say, man, we don't even know what's going to happen today, you get to be a part of that. And when things happen, you're the first on the scene. And I know they have extensive training, and I know, and we'll talk about training in a second because you had a great quote on that to the paper. But you're trying to prepare you for stuff. So it's not like you don't know what to do when you get there. And we all watch the TV shows. I love 911 and all that, but you know, even though it is just it's a drama but the way they handle those things is impressive because you can tell somebody's done their research on the way those emergencies are handled because they think about things that the regular people don't think about. So that's the job of firefighting and really encourage any of our young people that want to get into something like this. There's a need for them. There's always a need for people in public safety.
that's true. When you speak of public safety, honestly, it's job security for the most part. It's whatever you want it to be. My careers have provided me with the benefits and the resources that I've needed to do most of what I've wanted to do already in life. So it's a great thing. And the earlier you get started, the better. And it's really not that hard to get into these fields because right now, education wise, a minimum of a high school diploma or equivalent. But once you start in these fields, and depending on where you work, you have opportunities to continue your education, at no charge. These things are great. In the fire service, I wanted everything I could get my hands on. I was a rope rescue specialist, a dive rescue specialist, and I'm just going to be frank. When I was doing that, there weren't very many people doing it, number one, and there sure weren't very many Black people. I had my lieutenant was the only other one, and the instructor said, I don't have any, I don't think I've ever trained any Black people. I mean, but, and I was pretty darn good at it. I loved it. I love it.
That's
On
awesome.
just scuba
Uh,
dive. Good.
and you mentioned about no cost. Another great gateway into this is military training. Police departments, fire departments love hiring veterans. So, for kids that are interested in the military, I know I've got a couple in here. I know for a fact want to join the military. This would be a great post-military career. Now, I want to talk.
Yes.
You spent a lot of years as a firefighter, EMT. Then you made the pivot into law enforcement, which is very similar, but also a different skill set. So, what led to that pivot, and what are some things you had to learn being in law enforcement?
Um, I initially, I was being heavily recruited by my local police department as well. When I was a firefighter, there was a knock on the door every day. And I was a single parent at the time. And of course, firefighters, and it's still the same. They've changed their hours a little bit, but you work one day, off 2 days, and the 2 days you're off, you're working usually. However, so, I decided to go. And in my town, the police officers were getting paid a little bit more than firefighters. Why, I don't know, but that's just the way it was. So, I took advantage of that as well. And, but I love, my heart is still, I'm just a firefighter at heart, but I did it. But my career though, in law enforcement, which is just good. You mentioned athletes and things of that nature. That's great. I was an athlete, and even when I got into law enforcement initially, just like I was in the fire service, I wanted a challenge. And I was always like that. I was always on the SWAT teams, the agencies that I worked. Those are the kind of things, whatever the elite thing was, that's what I wanted to do again. I always examined the standards and did my checking so that I could measure up. So I love that. Oftentimes, even with that kind of stuff, if you can imagine being on the SWAT team or whatever, we go off, we train with people, we train with the guys in Memphis, everywhere. People like, you got a girl on your team? Well, yeah, I'm a different kind of girl too.
That's awesome. Yeah, and like we mentioned, the same thing in law enforcement. And again, I think the media portrays law enforcement negatively sometimes. Now, some of the negative portrayal is warranted, but some of it is kind of unfair. A lot of times, law enforcement are looked on negatively. But one thing I always say, and I've had our friend Carl Hampton on the same platform say the exact same thing. We need more diverse people to get into law enforcement. And it's not that the people that are there can't do a good job, but your law enforcement should always mirror your community. So that's why we need more women. We need more people that are bilingual. We need more people of different colors and different backgrounds because that's the people that you're going to be serving. When you go to a call, you don't know who's going to be there. So having everybody possible to be there is such a big deal. And like we said, especially as a female, if there's been an assault situation or there's been any type of domestic situation, again, it's not that the males aren't more than capable of handling it, but a female victim is probably going to feel more comfortable talking to somebody with a badge that has the same gender as them.
Right. And it's interesting because early in my career, I was often asked, are you going to be able to police in your own community? Now, police officers or any first responders for the most part, especially police officers, we're just products of our society. Just like wherever you are, wherever you live, can you police in your own hometown? Of course you can. I wasn't sure. I didn't really know what that meant when I was being asked that question a lot. But there are some, it has its pros and its cons, as it will anything else. But it worked out really well for me. I remember all kind of things. We do get to chase the bad guys and do a lot of that stuff. A lot of people I knew, a lot of people in the community knew me. They knew me. They knew my nickname. And sometimes, my fellow officers were getting a foot chases or, verbal confrontations with them that I didn't have. I didn't have those issues because they knew me. They knew me by my nickname. And I used to run all the time in our community, just as an athlete. I used to get up and run around, and they really thought I could run. I'm not that fast of a runner or anything. I just like to run. So they never ran from me. My counterparts were like, what is this? But it worked out. It worked out
Yeah,
working in my
but
own
it's not
community.
always kicking the doors down and like we see on cops. I mean, all that's the dramatic stuff. I mean, that is a part of it, and you're trained to do that. But it's even the things like directing traffic and crowd control at an event. It's you're there to have order. You're not there to just slap cuffs on people and throw them in jail.
Right. That's really a small percent of it. To be honest with you, you don't know in the beginning that 80% of what you're going to be doing is helping people. Like a lot of people say, they get into these fields because they want to help people, and you really are. You're doing things that you probably never thought that you would be doing, and it's a great assistance to the community. Because even as a firefighter, I kid you not, I think I remember hearing that somewhere on TV, like the alarm goes off, the firefighters were going to get the cat out of the tree. We actually had that call one day. I looked at my captain. I was like, "Are you serious?" And I'm gonna be honest, I had no clue. I said, "Why are we going to get a cat out of the tree?" I thought that was just something on TV, but really, I didn't even know that cats at the time go up the tree and afraid to come down. So that was so rewarding. Seriously.
Uh, no, that's awesome. Now, obviously, we got to talk about the viral photo because back in
Oh,
2015, you broke the internet when somebody on Twitter posted a picture of you responding to an active shooter situation in Mississippi State. Now, the way you were quoted in the paper was awesome because you said all I was doing was what I was trained to do to neutralize a threat. But the picture is of you in your heels, in your business suit, with a bulletproof vest on, carrying an assault rifle across the campus of Mississippi State. And you are not waiting on anybody. You are going to the action. So and I know you're so humble, and I love that about you. But just talk about for people that have, and I've showed it to them, and I'll show it to all of our other teachers as well. If they've seen the picture. When that's going on, we see it in the movies, we see it on TV, but that was a real life situation. So talk about how that kind of proved that at the end of the day, you guys are a product of training, and you're there to make sure people are safe.
well, thank you. So that particular situation, just like right now, I work for a smaller agency, and I'm in a uniform right now, but I'm an investigator. At the time, I wore plain clothes throughout my career. A lot of the time I spent as an investigator, detective. uh, in the agencies where I work. So, and we train. We train all the time. And like I said, I was a part of the SWAT teams, and I always, even as an investigator, had my rifle and vest always with me. It's just the way we train. We train the role, just like in fire service. And I'm telling you, that's the part that, that I really love and that you love. So yeah, we are trained to go to the threat. Anytime there's a report of an active shooter situation, we are trained to go directly to the threat. And that's whether, you by yourself or if the team gets there or whatever. There's training that we do. And that, yeah, you're right. That's exactly what I was doing. I was at my office, at my desk doing my investigative stuff when we got the call. So grab my vest, just like putting on my turnouts. I mean, I could probably get it done even faster than my counterparts because that's just what we do. That's that training that I got in the fire service. So it was on, and
Yeah, and it wouldn't have been a false alarm, but it was just so cool to see,
yes,
to let people know they're safe.
right.
Sorry, the office buzzed me. All right, so I do have some questions here, and I love this
Okay.
first one. This is Shania Willis. She's in 10th grade, one of our basketball players and on the track team. Wants
Right.
to join the military, but she asked, when you take off the uniform, how hard is it to separate being a police officer from your personal life?
That's a very good question. Very good question. And it takes time, it takes training nowadays compared to the way it used to be when I got into law enforcement or into the fire service period. There wasn't a whole lot of training for that. It was like suck it up and go kind of mentality. And when you do that, then yeah, you suck it up and go, but you also take it home with you, and that's not the best thing. So I've learned over the years, and I've trained a lot of officers as well, and I still do this as part of peer training. So, because I'm really involved in that, because I've seen so many really good people, my counterparts, that struggled with this very thing that she's asking, not knowing how to separate work from home. A lot of times they would go home and just sit. They have their families or the kids or the wife may say, hey, we have a ball game today. They think they're watching television, but they're not. They're just staring into space because we see a lot of stuff. Uh, it's not always often, but what a first responder can go through during the run of a day is just, it can be considered unreal, and you're expected to be able to wear all these hats and to handle all this stuff. So the good thing about these fields now currently is they do training for your mental health as well as your physical well-being as well. So
That's awesome.
uh,
And that's
yes.
great. The more departments are seeing that that's a need because it really is. And that's a great segue to this question because this is Jayon Kincaid. He's in 10th grade. And he asked, how do you handle seeing bad things like violence and other dangerous situations and deal with that mentally?
Okay, another very good question, because there was a time my mentality was, until I learned better, was, well, somebody's got to do it. And at the end of the day, this is the professions I chose, and we are called to go first. But again, once the once the incident itself is over, we do debriefing, and you are learn in your career how to debrief. And you can do this in everyday life with anything, really. How you process stuff, you learn how to debrief, which means you do have to sit down and you do have to talk about it. You want to uh, do whatever you need to do to make sure that you release it, and you have help. You're not alone anymore. You're not alone. You're always going to have help. Your commanding officers are going to debrief. Debriefing is a part of the process.
Awesome. I like this
Mhm.
one. This is Kelsey Slaughter. She's in 10th grade. And she asked, when you had the active shooter call, were you feeling more excited or worried that you were about to encounter a threat?
I will say this, and thank you for asking that question. We were so, we were well trained. I was well trained. So, I mean, at that point, it's just you do what you're trained to do. So I wasn't afraid. It's just, I just had to go.
That's awesome. All right, I
And
got time for two more.
okay.
This is Corbin Smith. He's in 10th grade, one of our track members here. And one of our choir members, great singer, and he asked, "What type of person would not be somebody that should get into public safety?"
Ah, that's a good question as well. And unfortunately, truthfully and unfortunately, there are a lot of people that are in every profession actually that shouldn't be in there. But if you do not have a high tolerance for certain situations or dealing with people when they are at their lowest or in crisis mode mentally or physically or whatever, this may not be for you. It's something, and sometimes it happens. Uh, whether it's a police or a fire or EMT, when we're going through our basic training, and it'd be same way with military, when we're going through our basic training, there's some people that show up, whether they were hired by an agency or not, and after a couple of days, it's like I can't do this, and that is the time to get out because you'll know early in whether or not this is what you need to be doing or not, and hopefully you're in a structured environment that help keeps things in order.
Now,
So
I like this one. This is Caleb Vaughn. He's in 10th grade as well. And he asked,
that's
"What
great.
type of physical preparedness did you have to do in the firefighter academy?"
Oh my God, that's a great question, and I'm so glad you asked that, Caleb. And that was tough. It was tougher than the police academy. It was tougher to get in than it was for the police entry test, physical test. That test was hard. If you can imagine, I had to do, and that was way back then, I had to do 7 pull-ups. I remember that. And what I'm telling you, I couldn't do one initially, but I didn't. I had to work. Again, I set goals. I'm so goal oriented till it's crazy. I don't care what it is. I set a goal, and again, whatever the standards are, I try to measure up. So I had to do a lot of hard working to be able to do those pull ups because everything that was, and it wasn't girl push ups you had to do. I had to do military push ups, and so it was a lot of work. It was hard. It was way harder than it was as far as the police entry test was concerned physically. And I had a physical agility test to take and a written test as well. And even as in the firefighter, they go ahead and introduce you to the SCBA. That's your breathing apparatus. And if you can't handle confined spaces, you probably gonna eliminate yourself right there as well. So it was tough, and it was even more tough for me mentally, I think, because I was competing against my counterparts. These were the same guys I went to high school with that were on the football team. All of them were the amazing football players that we had, and I thought, what? But I was just determined, and but it was hard. It was a lot of work. I hear a lot of you are saying that you're athletes and stuff, and that is great because athletes do make great first responders as well,
Absolutely.
and there's a reason why. Also, I hear a few of you saying you're interested in the military. I was too. When I was in college, I was in ROTC. I may have been a semester or whatever away from being commissioned officers, and I did get the opportunity to go to Fort Knox and do the basic, training and things of that nature. So yeah, I'm kind of military minded
That's
as
awesome,
well.
and it really is. For like we said, and we've said it a few times. For kids that are athletes, you get this. You can still be on a team. You get to still, it's almost like you're practicing. You're staying in great shape, and yeah, that stuff is hard, but it looks like so much fun to be able to do it. And once you're able to do it, it's got to be such a sense of accomplishment to say, look, I can jump into this burning building and nothing's going to happen to me. So really cool. Now we're almost out of time, and we thank you so much for joining us. But a couple things before we go. First of all, I think it's important. I always talk about this when I have a public safety professional. I just want to remind all of our young people: if you are ever in stop by anybody in law enforcement, the side of the road is not the place to fight and argue. The side of the road is not the place to try to say I didn't do anything. All that. Let your parents handle that. There are people that will handle it. If you're being wronged, let your parents handle that. The side of the road or out in front of everybody is not the place to be doing that. So, and look, everybody has encounters with law enforcement at some point, but why is it important to remember that? Because at the end of the day, we want everybody to get home safe. And if something's happened that you don't like, your parents can reach out and handle that and go through the right channels.
Right. And I'll explain this to you guys if I can real quick by using my own son as an example. My son is like 6'6", 200 plus pounds of a male and a young beast, if you will. So I used to tell him all the time, and initially he didn't like it because he was like, oh, you're just siding, with law enforcement. I said, no, son, I need you to understand that a law enforcement officer, a traffic stop is one of the most dangerous things that we do. And you're not going to win on the side of the road. You are not going to win. I said, could you please just let it be? Yes, sir. No, sir. I'm sorry, sir. You're right, sir. He's like, I ain't saying all that. I was like, well, you may be at a disadvantage. Not that I'm not saying that you agree with what is being said or done, son. All I'm saying is for your own safety, that is not the time or place to, try to argue with a law enforcement officer because you're probably going to be in the wrong. And 9 times out of 10, I'm sure they had PC for dealing with you in the first place or pulling you over or whatever the case may be. And they're not going to hold court with you. There's a time and place for that everywhere. He was like, but some of those guys, but nothing. Don't you think? I said, I think we can handle that situation later, whatever it is. I mean, if you're going to get a ticket, get the ticket. If you feel like it's not right, you will have your day in court. We will be okay
Yeah,
and, in court, if you feel like, you were wronged or whatever the situation is, please do not try to handle that on the side of the road. And we are trained, we're well trained that way. So, I mean, I'm not going to play with my own life on the side of the road, not dealing with anybody. So it's not worth it because whatever the situation is, even if an officer, if you feel like it's wrong, you can complain. I've always worked for agencies. We invite um, your complaints, but do it the right way. Do it the formal way. That way, if there is a bad cop, if you will. That's how you get them eliminated. The complaints come in formally, not you going back and forth with them on the street. And if they get enough complaints, or if they're the agency that looks into those complaints, and most of them do now, trust me, they will eliminate that individual if it deems necessary. But please, for your safety, I always tell people, especially when things start to get out of hand, I look at them and I smile. I say to them, for your safety and mine, would you please do whatever it is I need for them to do? For your safety and mine, now, I'm only gonna say that a couple of times, only if and then we may have to do what we gotta do, but if you ever hear an officer say that, and just remember that, and that's exactly what it is, for your safety and theirs, because their safety is just as important as yours. So we don't have to do all that on the side of the road. Don't do that if you can help
absolutely.
yourself, just for social media hype or whatever. No, it's not worth anything. It's not worth your life. It's not worth anything. Anything else, I promise you, it can be dealt with. Can be dealt with later.
Absolutely. And now the last thing before we go is, as these kids start making decisions in high school or college or wherever, or we know, like with someone to go to the military, why should they really consider getting into this field? Because we already said it's a great fit for a lot of kids and they may not even realize it. For those that may be considering this, why should they really consider getting into this field?
Why, yeah, I think you should, especially some of the ones. I mean, you guys, they prioritize to people that have gone into the military as well a lot of times, and that's good because you've already gone through some things and proven that you can deal with a lot of these situations. It's been a great. Hey, I'm still in it. I call myself retiring one time back at it, and I think I'm going to continue to do it until I just probably can't do it anymore because I love it. I love my life. I love what I do, and I do. We are able to help people a lot more than the negative stuff that you would see any day. So I'm telling you, and I tell my fellow law enforcement officers all the time, I'm a firefighter at heart. So I love it. I love the EMT aspect. Your professor here seemed to think it's that adrenaline that keeps me going, and it may be, but I love it.
That's
So
awesome. That's awesome. And I know you got to get back to work. And we thank you so much for joining us, my friend, all the way from Noxubee County Sheriff's Department there in Noxubee County, Mississippi. Virginia Rich, thank you so much for joining us today.
all right, thank you. You guys have an amazing day.
See ya.